Hello, I'm John Underwood, Technical Evangelist at ThreeWill, and in this installment of the Jive Connects for Microsoft SharePoint video series, we'll look at the Copy to Jive feature. Now, you'll recall from our earlier video on socialization that the connector has a built-in mechanism that will automatically cause data to flow from SharePoint to Jive. However, there may be some cases where you wish to have more control over this or to do this in a manual fashion, and that's what the Copy to Jive feature is about. So for this scenario, let's say that we work in the Human Resources Department and that one of our jobs is to review any incoming resumes. However, because of the way that we do business, we don't want to immediately publish those resumes to the entire company. Instead, we'd rather load them into a SharePoint library, go through some sort of review process, and then once we decide that it's a worthwhile candidate, we can push that information out to our Jive users. So I'll begin the demonstration by adding a document to my resumes library. Now, something interesting to note, unlike some of our other demonstrations, you'll notice that there is not a Jive status column here. And the reason for that is that this library is not participating in socialization. You'll recall in the earlier video when I talked about socialization that I specifically set up shared documents, but I did not set up resumes. Now, let's say that I've gone through the process of reviewing this resume and I want to push it out to other users so that they can begin reviewing it. Well, the easiest way for me to do that is simply float my mouse over the item and then click on the ECB or Edit Control Block menu. Most of us would know that as a context menu. And then you see the option here for Copy to Jive. So I'll select that, and then I'll decide the place that I want to put it. In this case, I'll just use the same Acme Global space that I've been demonstrating with all along. I'll click OK, and then I get a banner at the top of the screen indicating that the copy was successful. Now, if I go back over and navigate to my Acme Global place, you'll see that the resume does appear. Now, very important to note this. If I click on this resume and navigate to it, you will notice that it indeed made a copy of this resume and placed it into Jive. That is to say, unlike socialization, here we actually have two copies of the document, the original that lives in SharePoint and a copy that now lives in Jive. And notice that I can edit this document like I would any other Jive document. So that's something that you need to be aware of when you take advantage of this capability. It does give you the ability to manually decide when something moves over. But then the flip side of that is going forward, there are two copies of this document and there is not a connection between the two. If I modify it in SharePoint, it's not going to show up here, and vice versa. If I modify it in Jive, it's not going to appear in SharePoint. Now, one other way that you might take advantage of this capability is through the use of a workflow. Let's say, for sake of demonstration, that we had a very elaborate workflow that we had set up in order to approve these documents. Well, I could also use workflow capabilities for the copying to Jive, and really I could do that in two ways. One way is to go into the library's workflow settings and actually add the included workflow that comes with the connector. You can see right here that there is a Jive copy document workflow, and I could configure that to run either manually based on a user launching it or running automatically based on some event. In addition to configuring this workflow, there's also a Copy to Jive workflow step that comes with the connector that could be integrated with other custom workflows. So if I build my own custom workflow for the approval process, as the final step, once it's approved, I can copy the document over to Jive. So you can see some business scenarios where this might be useful, either as a part of an automated workflow or as a part of being able to manually decide when I want something to flow from SharePoint into Jive.